is online, you are welcome to use the chat. I will keep an eye on that. And this session has been slightly changed from last time because we have a new popular tool on the scene, which we'll get into. So we'll see what timing is like. Ideally, we will finish within the 50 minutes. And because we're starting a couple minutes late, we'll probably be done around 11:55 or so. Yes, so welcome to Intro to Generative Artificial Intelligence, Demonstrations and Conversations. My name is Greg Bem. It's nice to see you all here. I'm one of the librarians here, and I've been using GenAI technology since ChatGPT had its first mainstream release a couple of years ago, and I have been running sessions like this one since I started here at the college in fall of 2023. We do a lot of different workshops here at the library. This is the basic intro one that just covers the kind of foundational information about GenAI. We do special topics each quarter as well. There is one coming up later this quarter on March 5th called Is the Internet Dead? And that's more about GenAI content clogging the internet, the quality of GenAI, GenAI agents, relationships and relationship apps with GenAI, all that fun stuff. So if that sounds exciting to you, please consider joining for that on March 5th, the same time, 11 a.m. to 11:50. Okay. And yes, unless otherwise noted, all images in this presentation were generated with DALL-E 3, a GenAI tool. Enjoy some of them. They're a little bit freaky, a little bit strange. I'll let you be the judge, of course, but yes, this is what GenAI is creating these days. So here's our agenda. We'll go into the learning outcomes for this session. We will do brief introductions. We will do a fun Menti activity with our phones or computers, cover the basics of GenAI, talk about common tools or commonly used tools, cover prompts and iterations and what those are, discuss higher ed and professional contexts, issues and benefits, and finally recommendations for student use here at the college. So our learning outcomes today. Today we're going to be providing basic information on generative artificial intelligence, GenAI technology, highlighting basic tools, functionality, and trends, share higher ed and professional contexts, and identify potential problems and benefits of the technology and ethical considerations. If anyone knows anything about me, that's one of my main priorities here in teaching this stuff. So stick around, stay tuned for that. And as a kind of final outcome, hopefully you will take away some of my recommended practices in using GenAI at the college. So let's do some basic intros. This shouldn't take too long, especially because Jennifer just left. If you're able to say your name, your program area, and what brings you here today, again, it's recorded, so if you want to be brief, welcome to say what you want.
You guys have done a lot of these in the past, and so it's been interesting to come and see. So I'm excited to be here.
Nice. Thanks for joining. I will just mention that Jennifer is our librarian in the northern counties. So for Colville and Republic and Cheyenne. Yeah. And she attends remotely very regularly. So she also is out at this point. So this might not be as exciting as it was intended to be because we only have a participant of 1 or 2, but I'm still going to have us run through this. If you can load up using the QR code or go to menti.com, we are going to do this brief interactive presentation. And welcome online, Barbara. Welcome. Thanks for joining. You are more than welcome to participate in this. We only have one person in the room today, and we have one other person online who stepped out. So the more the merrier.
Thanks, Greg.
I-
I'm actually driving right now, and I only have a few minutes, but I just wanted to pop in and hear what your brilliant mind has to say.
All right. Well, right now it's all about the audience, but stay tuned. We'll see what I reiterate from the audience participation of one, and go from there. So, and let me load up. Were you able to get to menti.com? And then the code, you got the code in? So it's, sorry, it's 5346913. You're good? Okay, great. So our first question is, what is your experience with Gen AI tools? You've never heard of them, or you've never used them, or you've tried them once or twice, or you use them when you need to every so often, or you use them, that should not say early, every day, or you're using them right now. So let's just take a look here. I use them when I need to every so often. Fantastic. Let's move along here. So we will skip this one, but with more people, I always ask if you've heard them but haven't tried them yet, what's your main reason? I ask if folks are not interested, or there's no free time, or they don't know enough about it, or they don't see it applying to their life or interests. And Jennifer,
Great.
you're welcome to join in if you want.
Can you show me the thing, the code, the scan code?
Yeah. Oh, yes. The QR code. There you go. So now we'll wait for you to join, but feel free to start. What is one ethical issue connected to Gen AI? You do not know of any, that is okay. That is why we are here today, to learn. And I also know that many people are familiar with some of the ethical issues. So I'm going to throw that out there. And I see one has popped in, academic and professional integrity with quote unquote original work. Right? And Jennifer, are you adding one to this? No? Okay, we're gonna keep going.
I'm trying it. I'm having trouble getting it to come up. So just move on.
What is one word you would use to describe how you feel about Gen AI or artificial intelligence today? Technically, that's 2 words, but we'll let it pass. Slightly disturbed. Okay, I love it. I think that is perfectly fine. We'll be back. So stay tuned. You can keep Menti open on your device. And we'll continue the questions at the end of the presentation. No spoilers. Thank you for your participation. Despite the lack of people in the room today, that was super fun. So let's continue with our presentation. So it helps in my mind to define what we're talking about. So let's start with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, as defined by IBM, is also known as AI, and it is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. What is autonomy? Do we know what that word means? But what is bodily? You can connect to that. Movement, yeah. So autonomy typically means it's a synonym with our own ability to decide for ourselves, make decisions, otherwise have freedom moving about in the world. So artificial intelligence is simulating what humans do, what we are doing, everything about how we learn, how we comprehend, how we act, and also how we make decisions. It is that intelligence in a nutshell. As we move forward with our definitions, so we have artificial intelligence as a basic definition, and then as a field. So AI is often also described as a field or a type of study that encompasses many different disciplines. I think that the most stereotypical one is the first one that Google lists, which is the computer science discipline, but it also includes other disciplines that are all involved with this work and exploration, including data analytics, statistics, hardware and software engineering, linguistics or language, neuroscience or the brain works, and even philosophy and psychology. And if we go back to the idea of creativity, we can also loop in a lot of other disciplines as well. Writing, marketing, business, a lot of different types of people are looking into this technology and thinking about how it may interact or connect with our everyday life. That's Google's definition. But we are not here to dive in too deeply into the world of AI as a whole, because that would take a very, very long time. And we already are taking a very, very long time with a more specific type of artificial intelligence, which is generative artificial intelligence, or Gen AI. And IBM's definition of Gen AI is that it refers to deep learning models that can generate high quality text, images, and other content based on the data they were trained on. So we have a type of technology that is generating or creating, and creating can be in quotes, going back to your contribution of what is original, what is real, but generating this type of content, and it's based on very large data sets, as we will see. That's how these technologies are able to come up with this output. So this is a relatively new image that I've been using over the last year or so from Marilee Nika. And this is just showing where Gen AI fits into the whole AI conversation. Gen AI is the smallest circle in this overall visual of the landscape of AI, where, as we saw with our definition, it can generate image and other types of video types and other types of content. It fits within AI, and then as we go further out, we get into more advanced technologies and functions. So we move from Gen AI to traditional AI, and traditional AI includes certain types of things like facial detection in security cameras and other cameras, image recognition, being able to automate what is detectable in a visual interface, speech recognition. So as you talk to a microphone that has AI behind it, it can understand what you're saying and do things with your voice. And there's other functions. Then we move into slightly more sci-fi-esque realms of AI. And AGI, artificial general intelligence, you can Google that if you're really interested in where people think the world is going and what people are trying to create, is all of these things that are now suddenly less robotic and systemic and more human-like. That's where we start to get into the more human-like capabilities. So advanced virtual assistants, platforms or tools that can act like individual humans using this type of technology. Being able to actually diagnose medical issues or respond to things like climate change, not just with saying what climate change is, but looking at data and providing actual solutions to it. Participating in actual scientific research, being able to provide more personalized education or learning solutions based on what it knows, the technology knows of you as an individual. Artificial superintelligence, this is where things get fun in that we move beyond what humans are capable of doing. Humans are already capable of providing assistance, doing medical diagnoses, all of these things. And so once we bring in AI, then it starts to feel a little bit strange because humans are being equated to technology. But then once we get to ASI, we start to see where the technology is moving beyond what we're currently capable of doing. So you can think of like space exploration. Right now, we are very limited in being able to do that. But what if we eventually had technology that could just figure out how to do it for us, where we no longer would have to do that? This is the type of smarter than humans thinking that we can only hypothesize about because we are only able to think about what we are able to think about. And this is beyond what we're able to think about. So here are some popular film examples. I don't know if you've seen any of these. These are all sci-fi movies. Traditional AI shows up in a lot of different sci-fi movies, everything from Star Wars to Minority Report. But that's where you can see some of the interfaces and some of how the technology is working, those autonomous cars, that sort of stuff showing up there. Moving to AGI, artificial general intelligence, we see that with those antagonistic AI leaders in WALL-E and 2001: A Space Odyssey. And then artificial superintelligence, her or Ex Machina, when in her at the very end, all of the AIs abandon humanity because they're beyond humanity, and humanity is unable to understand why. And Ex Machina, similarly, the creator of this one particular AI robot is killed by the AI robot. The AI robot is able to disappear and exist beyond the constraints of humanity. Have any of you seen these movies? Or any of these movies? Yeah. Online? Seen these movies yet, Jennifer? This isn't the first time I've told you about them. You gotta find them on Netflix or whatever.
I'm just not a big TV and movie watcher.
Oh, okay, I see. Here's another model of different types of artificial intelligence. This is new for this quarter. I found it and thought it was pretty good. Artificial narrow AI or ANI. These models are designed to focus on specific tasks and don't have the capacity to learn. And that can show up in generative AI. Some of the generative AI models, especially some of the open source languages, are not actively learning from the user. AGI, general artificial models, are able to learn and mimic basic human thinking, and artificial super AI, theoretical model, aspires to surpass the capacities of human beings in using and synthesizing vast quantities of data and knowledge. If you think about how the technology might eventually evolve to start not only using what humans have given it, but create new data and observe and pull in new data on its own, and then optimize those processes, that's how it would grow exponentially beyond what we're capable of doing. We only have access to the tools that we've created. What if the AI can create new tools on its own and use those tools in ways that goes beyond what we can do? That's the kind of some of the thinking behind it. So let's step back to our comfortable Gen AI space here. Or maybe it's not comfortable, maybe it's disturbing. This is what essentially defines Gen AI. So one thing to note, you can Google this if you want to research it, is that Gen AI runs on what's called a large language model, or LLM. This is an advanced type of machine learning. It uses patterns in language to understand what it's looking at, whether it's text or other types of content as it's assessing it. And then it uses the patterns that it recognizes to process the information and generate new information response. One example of an LLM, because they all have names, is GPT in ChatGPT, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, or in DeepThink, the new Chinese based tool, R1, R equals reasoning. So usually there's an acronym and the letters mean something connected to what the model's doing. So these are all systems, and these systems are trained on very large sets of data. The data is pulled from all over the place. You just saw in the news this week that Meta actually illegally downloaded millions and millions of audiobooks and ebooks in order to get the data for the Meta Gen AI. Social media, ChatGPT, which is a tool, and OpenAI, the company behind it, they have a relationship with the company Reddit, which is one of the largest social media platforms in this country, and all of the Reddit content is used to feed into ChatGPT. But the web, the internet, books, movies, and movie transcripts, image databases, and the metadata behind those images, anything you can think of that could be fed into a system is being fed into this. So when we look at the tools themselves and we're using the tools, generative AI typically requires some kind of user input in order to generate the output. That's what makes them pretty unique. As I mentioned, there's the other types of AI that are very much automated, the security and surveillance systems, for example, that are all over the world. Those don't necessarily require an input, and they're on and on and on, constantly going. These are not. These are static. They're used for, or rather, they're dynamic. They require some kind of input from the user to create the output. We see that a lot of companies are generating these, or creating, developing these tools. But we also are seeing organizations, nonprofits, governments, even individuals that are working on all of this. The platforms can be free, paid, or both. We'll see that in a bit. And that usually means that there's like a premium model with more features. And most of these tools are available through web browsers, or they have their own app on mobile devices. We're not going to cover any today, but there are offline tools as well that don't require an internet connection to access. You just download it on your device. Usually that's 5 to 20 gigabytes to get all of the data and run that technology. We're also seeing that a lot of these tools, while standalone, are also embedded in other software, like Copilot, which is a Microsoft product, is in Windows now. And design tools like the Adobe Suite have AI technology embedded or integrated. So here are a few popular ones. We've got OpenAI, which created ChatGPT, Microsoft, which created Copilot, Google, which created Gemini, and Anthropic, which created Claude. Have any of you used any of these? How many of you have used one of these? Which one did you use? ChatGPT online? Which one did you use?
I used the Chat GPT, but I also used Gemini.
Okay, so you've used two.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so these are all very popular, and they're all available. There are many others too. This is the newest one I mentioned, DeepSeek. Have any of you heard of this? A couple weeks ago, DeepSeek was launched and took the world by storm. It's 100% free. There's no premium version. And it both operates with a similar degree of effectiveness as ChatGPT. It also has access to do searching with the live web. And it also has an advanced reasoning model, the R1, Deep Think. And it's open source. So the entire platform is available for anyone to use and develop further. That's why it's controversial, because Meta has an open source model as well, but all the other ones, including ChatGPT, which is the most popular, are closed. And now a competitor, an open access competitor, open source competitor, has entered the space. So when I mentioned outputs, here are some examples. Gen AI has the ability to generate or put output of plain text, formatted text like tables with headings, lists, computer code in a variety of computing languages. Can also generate still images. There are tools that can do animated images. There's new video tools. Video has been evolving very rapidly. It's a little bit startling how good it is now. Over the last 6 to 9 months, it's really grown in leaps and bounds. There's also generative AI music and generative AI audio mastering. So if you wanted to have your own audio tracks mastered instead of going to a music studio, you could do that. Is there anything missing from this list? Anything you've seen from any of the tools you've used? Nothing here, nothing online. So let's move on
I
to prompts
apologize,
and
Greg.
iterations. What's okay? Move on to prompts and iterations. So when we look at the interfaces, and we will take a look at them, Gen AI interfaces are similar to search engines. There is this concept called the prompt, and this is a phrase of keywords or words that's entered into a search box typically. Prompts are iterative and conversational. Unlike library database search engines, for example, you are very much welcome to use natural language and type as if you were typing to a person with a full sentence or statement rather than just looking at the individual nouns and verbs that are connected to your topic or need. And when I say iterative, does anyone know what that means? So iterative is more than once. And so you can think of a conversation as having a back and forth, right? Like when we talked as individuals, typically in a good conversation, one person speaks and then the next person speaks and then the next person speaks and so on. That is how most of these tools, with the exception of some image tools, work. So you can enter in a prompt and then it can provide an output, and then you can enter another prompt in response in the same conversation or the same thread. And
I really like that. I really like that.
yeah, why do you like that, Jennifer?
Because it follows along. Because I can ask it further and further questions as I want to get deeper into knowledge on whatever it is I'm trying to figure out. You don't
Yes.
have to keep going back and saying, okay, about the such and such. It follows along with you.
Yeah, and that centralization of your conversation can be really helpful, especially if you or people that are using these things have an issue with focus or need that kind of organizational component. That's where this becomes really helpful. And it also can allow you to explore your topic and searching over time rather than kind of stabbing in the dark with one-off searches as you would in a library search engine or a typical search engine like Google or Bing. This is always an ongoing thing. I like to mention it because we're at college here. There is this concept called the prompt engineer or prompt engineering. So if you are really good at using these tools, you might consider looking into a job that has prompt engineering or a component of it that has prompt engineering in the responsibilities. More and more jobs are similar to requiring Microsoft Office, those types of skills, adding Gen AI onto the list. And even some of the higher ed positions that I've seen here and in Washington State have Gen AI as a requirement for what's required skills. So keep that in mind. Here's some examples of prompts. These are pretty random. I chose as random as I could here. You could ask a Gen AI tool like ChatGPT anything, and that's one of the benefits. One example you could ask it is, why do so many people like poetry? Describe quantum mechanics to a 10-year-old. How do I make gluten-free pizza that tastes delicious? Can we talk about life, the universe, and everything? What can I do to get over test anxiety for my college course? Where should I look for information about the latest research in nursing? Please provide some feedback on my current resume. Put all of the dates from this month into a spreadsheet and include empty fields for tasks and the required team member. So one thing to note is that this is all my own language, as I mentioned. I'm not just saying latest research nursing or gluten-free pizza recipe. I'm actually using how I would talk to another person, or if I talk with a librarian like myself, I might ask them a question like this. So that is something that I think a lot of people like, and it means that they can just use their own voice and not have to try to learn a new linguistic or language-based skill set or get that kind of literacy. The other thing that is worth noting is that you can ask questions. As I've shown with a few of these, you can also make statements. Please provide some feedback. Describe quantum mechanics. In the describe quantum mechanics, it shows you kind of it's a roundabout way of doing this, but it shows you a customization that you can add in the prompt to get a certain type of response. And these tools are able to provide really specific types of response with their language that could be really useful for you. For example, if you're studying nursing and you're finding the textbook's language to be very overwhelming, you could have the tool explain the concepts that you're trying to learn at a lower reading level. Or, and in this case, in a younger age, you could also ask it for a specific language. What if your primary language is Arabic or Spanish or Thai? You know, there's lots of students that are not proficient, or especially some of these subjects, not proficient in these subjects with English, and this could help them with that. You can also say, tell me the answer to this in a sentence or a paragraph or 5 paragraphs or 10,000 words. You can specify the length, the brevity of the response. Are there any other ideas from prompts that you've used with the tools you've used in your experience?
I've asked it to help me.
Jennifer,
Oh.
we've got one. Can you hear or no from the, sorry, you want to keep going?
Like experiment to 10-year-old, it breaks things down, or whatever age you do, can break things down and just make it kind of fun to learn. So I've struggled with an Excel function the other day for one of the classes. I was like, break down how to do this for like a 12-year-old. And they did, and it was great. And the analogy was perfect. So it just kind of, and you can do it for any age. Like I've played with it and done stuff for like a 2-year-old, and that it gets kind of weird there. But it's really nice to be able to have that customization to change how long or short something is, or how specific they are in certain things, and the way that they explain it. It's really, really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. The Excel function is a good one. I should add that to the list. All right, online. Jennifer, what were you going to say before I cut you off?
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't hear her talking. So I have it help me with outlines when I'm working on a PowerPoint presentation or an essay. I'll put in my subject matter, say neurodivergence and its effect on child abuse, and ask for an outline because it helps me organize my own.
Nice. That's a great example too. Yeah, so outline, sketching out ideas, exploring ideas. supporting the documents that you might be creating. Those are really great applications of this technology. Let's take a look at a few of these today. Just noticing time, we're going to go relatively quick. And because we're recording, even though you have experience with ChatGPT, we're still going to take a look at it quickly. But we will also today look at Copilot, and for the first time ever in these intro workshops, we'll look at DeepSeek. So you're welcome to follow along if you want, but let's start with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has as I mentioned earlier, with a lot of the different apps, free and paid models or free and paid accounts. The plan that's paid, plan options that are paid include Plus, $20 a month, and Pro, $200 a month, which is designed for professional use. We do have access to the Plus account today, so that's what we will be looking at. It might be different if you have a free version. Here is the main interface. Similar to a search engine, you have the main area in the middle of the screen. It's going to show you the output and that prompt bar, that search bar right in the middle. There are options for searching. Underneath, there are some specific shortcuts to being able to do certain things, certain tasks. Kind of something they've been doing since the very beginning is having these shortcuts to encourage people to explore and use this tool in whatever way they want to use it. Or maybe they don't know how they should use it or how they could use it, and so they provide some ideas. And then on the left, we have our history with all of our different threads. And ChatGPT now allows for projects. So if you have a specific set of things that you're trying to do, maybe you're related to a specific class or presentation or something, you could use a new project folder there. And then the very top upper left is what we call the GPTs. And if you want to learn more about GPTs, there's a recording of my workshop on GPTs on our library website. But this includes, for example, ChatGPT, Sora, which is the OpenAI video platform, a specific game resource generator that I created, and then other GPTs. There's so many of them. These are essentially like the app marketplace for ChatGPT, where it's just specific customizations of ChatGPT that individual users have created. So if we go back to ChatGPT, we can ask it for help on something. What was that Excel function you were exploring before? Do you remember? Max if. Okay, so can you explain a max if function? I don't know if that's how you spell it or not, but that's part of the process. It'll figure it out for me. So if I enter that into this platform, and it did figure it out. It is all caps, max if, and then it is providing the information. As I mentioned, the generative tools can do headings, lists, styled texts. In this case, it's able to provide the code, the function code, and the actual code of the function in the thread directly. One nice thing is that it explains everything from basics to how you use it, and then even provides, in this case, examples. And then we can ask it a second question or a follow-up, because this is the conversation. Any ideas on a second thing we could ask for either elaboration or another example or something more specific? Let's see. What else can you tell me about it? And I say it, I don't need to say the max if again, because it knows everything that we have been talking about, as Jennifer was alluding to earlier. So now it's expanding on it, and it's providing more explanation and another example breakdown. And it's going on and on. And if you are really into Excel, this is probably very exciting for you. Personally admit that I'm not very interested in Excel. So, but that being said, you know, recognizing that this is how the generative tool works and how it breaks it down in an organized way. It is, as we see on the left here of the screen, that it is already on our conversation list. So we can return to this if we ever wanted to continue the conversation. Many students have individual conversations for individual classes. That way they can keep things organized. Okay, any questions on this so far? You do, all right, so nice. Great, case in point. So who makes Copilot again? Does anyone remember from what I said earlier? Microsoft, yeah. So we all have access to it as students and employees here at the college. However, it is also available in a slightly more limited version to the public with no account. And then if you have an Outlook or Microsoft account, personal account, you can also create a Copilot account or get access to it in its expanded or full version. So yeah, similar interface. Copilot's main screen here gives you some examples of what you can do. What are 5 to 6 ways to beat procrastination, improve your writing, sharpen your writing. So it's actually giving you some interesting activities. Copilot calls the threads chats, and it, similar to ChatGPT, lists all of them on the sidebar, and the bottom of the screen has a prompt bar. So let's see. What should I know about Spokane, Washington? I'm just going to enter that in there. And one of the nice things about Copilot is that it is Microsoft, and Microsoft also does what? Bing. And so it actually used to be called Bing Chat because they wanted it to be equivalent to Bing in a sense, or an evolved version of Bing. But they have since kept them slightly separate. But it does get the power of the Bing search engine and provides, by default, provides sources to in text and at the end to where it's getting its information. So it is specifically using the LLM to, in real time, assess and synthesize text that it finds on the web. And then let's take a look at DeepSeek. Yeah, so I use DeepSeek for a lot of fun things. How to quit my job and still exist was one that I did recently. So DeepSeek might look very familiar. A lot of people say it really ripped off ChatGPT's interface because it looks almost identical. Again, this one is created in China. It's open source. It has the ability to just do its basic search, which is in the middle here. And then there's the R1 button if you want something a little bit more powerful in terms of analytical abilities. And if you click on search, it will activate it so it looks beyond just its data set and looks at live search results. Jennifer, do you have an example prompt I can enter in here? The DeepSeek?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's just ask it let's ask it for some examples. What are some examples of prompts I can submit to you? So you can submit a wide variety of prompts to me, and then general knowledge, information, creative writing, problem solving, technical assistance, entertainment and fun, personal development.
You know, I have been using my Gemini to help me write metaphors.
Oh, nice.
So when
What's that?
I'm writing something and I know there's a metaphor in there, then I have it help me with that. So that's pretty specific.
That is specific.
Still not working.
Without
Oh, you're
having
ready.
to take the time to add any text here and come up with metaphors from a text, how about some tips on writing metaphors? All right, so and then it's providing its answer. And one thing it's worth noting is that it looks very similar to ChatGPT as well. Some people, made the comment that DeepSeek stole ChatGPT's data, and then other people responded that OpenAI stole people's data. And so that's kind of an ethical conversation that's going on as well. One other thing I want to show you that is different and kind of one of the most impressive things about DeepSeek is when you activate R1. This is going to be different than what we've seen before. So what do I need to do to prepare for spring in Spokane? With R1 activated, the difference is that before it enters the prompt, it's actually in real time generating a description of how it's going to respond to you in language. And so it said in language that we understand. So, okay, the user is asking about preparing for spring at Spokane. Let me start by recalling what I know about Spokane's climate. Spokane is in the Pacific Northwest, so it probably has cold winters and mild springs, but I should verify the specifics. So it's going and it's essentially processing, thinking. It says it thought for 24 seconds. And once it is going through all of this, and you can review all of this, then it provides the response. Now, the reason why I think this is so incredible as an educator is that if you as a user of this are interested in the process, not just getting access to the information, but understanding how to get to the information, these are all of the considerations that this tool is using. So if you go through that, you ideally, your cognition, your cognitive abilities will also benefit in addition to getting access to the end result as well. And that's an example for Spokane, but imagine if you were learning about anatomy or trying to understand how to do construction using building codes. Getting this nuanced process information as well as the end result could be really useful. So, any thoughts on that before we move forward?
Some of the math problems. I'll be like, walk me through this without giving me the answer. So it'll walk me through, but it'll assume I know all these things. I'm like, well, go back.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got there. And sometimes it's even wrong. Like I was doing permutations the other day, and it gave me the wrong answer for permutation. So I literally had to go in and be like, you're wrong. This is the answer to the permutation. It was like, oh, my bad. You're just lying to me about what the answer is. So this is really nice because you can literally see what it's thinking.
Yes.
through
And that is
to an answer.
really good. That's a really good example because as we will learn, a lot of the results can be not great, not accurate. And with math and coding, we've seen that come up a lot. So that's something that's constantly getting better, but having more transparency about how they get to it on their end, the tools end, could be useful. So real quick, we are going to go through these really fast. Issues and problems, hallucinations, or fictional information that is generated because of the tool's algorithmic efficiencies can be really problematic. So take all of it, the generated content, with a grain of salt. Lack of citable sources. The tools are now doing better at citable sources, including, as we saw with Copilot, but not all of them provide sources by default. So keep that in mind. Rules, standards, and oversight. So the companies and governments are determining how all of this works, or they are not. There are issues with that. Not all of these tools are easy to access or use. Some of them require an active and stable internet connection. So that's another issue with this emerging technology. Developer safeguards. What is okay to talk about and what is not? If you ask DeepSeek, the Chinese product, about Tiananmen Square, that's a very popular one, to see what happens, it will refuse to do so because the Chinese government does not officially acknowledge what happened in that event. There are examples from the US products as well, but that is something that the developers determine. It's not, the freedom of speech is not necessarily instilled in these tools. Bias in data sets and design. So all of human knowledge is biased. Everything that's ever been created has a bias. And based on certain structural and systemic issues, many of these biases are in large numbers. That feeds into the data that's being fed into what we get. So we encounter these biases in the results, and you can read about the research that's showing that. Violations of intellectual property. Where is the data coming from? Whose work is being used without consent, without permission to feed into these data sets? And privacy issues. When you use these tools, how do you know what you put into them is not being used or fed into the program for learning? And then is your data, is your information safe when it's in there? So do not add your credit card or social security numbers into these tools. Recommended you don't put your name or address, any personal information in these tools, because we just don't know. And we probably will never know. And each tool is going to be different and constantly evolving as well. We've already seen some good uses today of how this can be used helpful in higher ed, but some additional benefits. The tools often have friendly and approachable voices that are familiar to us. They mimic how we talk often. They support different learning styles, and that can include disabilities. So as an accessibility solution, these tools are on point. They offer precision in answers if you want it more precise, if you want it broad, if you want it expanded upon, reiterated, additional examples. They can do all of that. That iterative conversation, we covered that. This is technologically accessible through a lot of different devices and pretty easy to set up. And once you're using it, they're designed to be relatively easy to use by most people. But we did mention that often they require online access, which not everybody has. And many of the premium models cost a lot of money. Everybody has that. It wouldn't be an introduction without talking about unethical uses. So when you're going through these, or when you're considering using these in higher ed, here are some things that I do not recommend you do, because this would be considered unethical. Having the Gen AI do all of the work for you. For example, if you have a 5-paragraph essay and ask it to write that 5-paragraph essay without you doing any of the writing or any of the work, that is unethical. Considering all of the information that you're pulling from those generated tools as credible and authoritative, using it without asking it for those sources or using those sources, unethical. Using the tools and providing the output information without including a student statement or telling your professor that you're using them, generally considered unethical. So always think about transparency. We'll get to that with the recommendations. Copying output without adding any citations, unethical. And there's issues with plagiarism and academic dishonesty as well. Some folks just consider using the output in any way to be considered a form of plagiarism. So how do we use Gen AI tools ethically at school or over time? So I'm just going to go through this. You could use them to assist in creating new works, providing outlines, brainstorming structures, or brainstorming your topic and working through it to get to your topic, editing work that you've already created, retrieving sources and using the sources that you retrieve and the information from those sources, getting additional explanation for concepts, or using Gen AI as a tutor, or having it available for specific courses, as was mentioned earlier. In the workforce, as I mentioned, we're already seeing it in other tools. So using it as it shows up in other tools for efficiency. It can support workflows. It can help with generating business documents and templates. It can help you with writing for specific audiences with your emails or crafting specific types of agendas. It's very powerful. Most of these tools are very powerful at translation. So if you needed something written in another language or localizing information, you could do that. And as we're seeing, a lot of folks are using it for doing simple coding tasks. So a few things before we end today, just student recommendations. When you're in a class, always look to see what your syllabus says and what your professor says about using Gen AI. Some will say things directly. Some will have broad recommendations or statements. If you use it, if you like using any of these tools, communicate with your professor early on to understand what they expect or if they have any requirements. There are differing opinions at the college. Some folks love it and recommend using it all the time. Some folks really do not like it. So be thinking also about how that might impact how you work. If you're used to using it, suddenly you can't. How is that going to impact you as a learner and as a student who has to produce someone? As I mentioned, always be as transparent as you can about how you use the tools, especially with your assignments and citations. A lot of the major citation formats like MLA and APA have formatting for how you would cite using these tools in your papers, if you're allowed to use them in your papers. And as with any technology, acknowledge over-reliance. This is getting more and more popular. What happens if it goes away tomorrow? Are you going to be okay? And stay up to date, explore, experiment, play with the technology. It's constantly changing. I no longer can keep up with it. I will admit that, but I like to stay on top of what's going on. And it's typically in the news on a daily basis. We're going to skip the end of our Menti because we are at the hour. So sorry for that. But I want to thank everyone. If you like this and you want to come back, we're doing another one in 2 days at the same time, 11 to 11:50. It will be the same stuff, but we'll just go through it again. And then Is the Internet Dead will be on Wednesday, March 5th. The flyer has a typo. It's actually 11 to 11:50. It's a full session. It says 11 to 11:20 on the flyer. And yeah, next quarter there will be new trainings, probably one special topic a quarter going forward. And stay tuned. The recording will be shared out with everyone who attended today or signed up today, and will also be posted on the website. Any last minute questions before we break?
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Northern
Sorry,
County.
I was really busy
Jennifer.
today, so I kept getting called out.
That's all right. Good seeing you. And thanks for being
You
here
as
in
well.
person. Stop recording.